So, well done, Nick. Yeah, we're just hitting record there so that people can listen back after the event. So yes, very good afternoon and very warm welcome to our Why Get Chartered Roundtable discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today. Those of you who don't know me, my name's Ruth Jackson. I'm a Chartered Senior Communications Professional, currently at Cambridge Enterprise at the University of Cambridge, and chair of the CIPR East Anglia Committee. And also from the committee, providing support on this webinar today are my colleagues Hayley Mace and Nick Ray. Thank you both. You give everyone a little wave. So they're on hand. Thank you very much for your support today. And I'm very delighted that joining me on the panel today, I have fellow chartered practitioners Sharon Blease, Wasanta Dashana, Emma Drake, and Steve Shepperson. A very warm welcome to you all. Thank you very much for joining me. Before they introduce themselves, just a few quick housekeeping points. So we are recording, that's the first thing. And please, can you just keep your mics on mute and your cameras switched off? I definitely recommend viewing in gallery mode so you can easily see myself and the panelists as we get into the discussion. You're very welcome to pop your questions and comments in the chat as we go. I'll keep an eye on that, and if the conversation lends itself, I'll pull those in as we go along. Otherwise, we'll make sure we allow time at the end for your questions. So hopefully we'll have time to cover anything off that you might have burning that you want to put to the panel. Okay, let's get started then with some brief introductions. I'm going to go in alphabetical order to be perfectly democratic about this. So Sharon, could I just ask you to go first? If you could just very briefly say who you are, what you're up to at the moment, and when you got chartered, that would be great.
Certainly. I'm Sharon Blease. I'm Coastal Manager for Suffolk as part of Coastal Partnership East, and we're a partnership of 3 local authorities. So that's North Norfolk, Great Yarmouth Borough Council and East Suffolk Council. And I'm Strategic Communications Lead for all of those 3 local authorities. I was 22 years in sales and marketing before 17 years ago I joined the public sector. And I was fortunate enough to become chartered in 2016. And at the moment, my main focus, and this will be fresh in everybody's minds post COP26, is looking at climate change and climate adaptation and how we can start working with our communities to change some behaviours, both societally and individually. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Wasanta, I think you're up next.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Wasanta Darshana. I'm working as the Marketing and Communication Director for a healthcare company called Kingsley Healthcare. Our head office is based in Lowestoft. However, we have our site across the country. And I got chartered in 2018 with the same time as Ruth and Emma, I think. And so here I am. Look forward to speaking to you.
Great, thanks, Wasanta. And Emma.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma, founder of Hemby Communications, and I'm an independent practitioner. Previously worked in-house for more than, well, for a long time, and I got chartered, 2018, the same year as Ruth and Wasanta as well. So
great. Steve.
Hi, my name is Steve Shepperson Smith. So first of all, thank you everyone for coming along today. Super excited to talk about this topic, and thanks Ruth and CIPR East Anglia for inviting me. So I work as a senior manager in corporate communications at Vodafone PLC. I look after 2 big files. So I manage PR on behalf of our Africa markets. This is 9 of those. And I also run reputation measurement and a management program that I set up across 20 countries. Which is a lot of work, but fascinating, rewarding, and all the rest of it. It's also worth saying that I've been a CIPR member for 23 years now. So super big fan of CIPR. I'm on the board, and I'm going to be president in 2023. So please do direct all your IR, customer service complaints, etc. for CIPR to me, and I will delegate it. Hooray! Thank you.
Good job, Steve. That's great. So I've just paused my sharing screen. Does that mean that you can you just confirm you can't see the slides so that we're front and center?
I can still see the slides.
Okay, I'm going to just actually stop sharing then. Okay, cool. Great. So let's get into our discussion. And I really want to start with the why of getting chartered. Now, I'm aware that currently, I checked the stats before joining the call, we have around 10% of our membership in the region, precisely 39 out of 405 members who are chartered practitioners. So, given that this is now a fairly accessible achievement from mid-management upwards, it's a fairly, I'd say that's disappointingly low, and would suggest the motivation isn't there in a lot of cases. So I would like to start by exploring our own motivations for getting chartered. In my case, it was twofold. I was looking for both the external validation for my professional standing, as well as the more personal one of knowing that I was making a positive commitment to keeping my skills and knowledge sharp. So I'd be interested to hear from yourselves. Steve, would you like to start off with your reasons, please?
Sure. So very much more the latter for me, Ruth. So I was born and brought up on Jersey, started my career there, and I sort of liken it to learning how to drive on a farm. So when it started in PR, we felt very isolated. This was before there was a Channel Islands group, which we founded in about 2008. So prior to that, we could be members of CIPR, and indeed I have been my whole career, but we didn't really sort of feel like we knew what PR at the top level was like. And so to sort of stretch that analogy to breaking point, I knew that I wanted to drive on roads around the world in the future. And kind of wanted that sort of competence ability to do it. So all of the CIPR learning I've done has been around that. It's been around learning practical skills, but also giving me the confidence to go out and perform at the highest level of this industry. And becoming a chartered practitioner was a sort of natural extension of that, and gave me a huge amount of confidence. And I was lucky enough to get chartered with people like Sarah Pinch, and being in the room with people who are really at the top of their game. I'm a huge Sarah Pinch fan, and gave me the confidence that I too could be in that, to operate at that level. And a lot of my work now is having difficult conversations with people, and having to really back my own opinion. And I used to actually work for a guy who would test you by saying, "Are you sure?" Whenever you said anything, and I think PR, chartered practitioner, and indeed the other CIPR qualifications are really important for that, for giving you that base level of confidence to go out and perform and really back yourself. So that was really my motivation for doing it.
I can relate to a lot of what you've just said. Emma, what about yourself?
Yeah, I suppose, I agree with a lot of what you said, actually, Steve. I suppose being an independent consultant, so I chartered as an independent consultant. So I'd left my in-house career, I think the year before. I should have checked before doing the roundtable. I'm pretty sure it was the year before. I think I'm coming up 5 years. Yeah. So for me, it was a lot about timing, and I'd previously taken quite a lot, 3 of the postgraduate qualifications over the years with the CIPR. So I didn't want to extend my skills in that way, but I think going into it as an independent practitioner, I should probably caveat that as well. I was one of the first people actually to take the postgraduate diploma when the CIPR first started doing it. So a while ago. So I've always been in this more strategic space. I think luckily for me, for most of my career, I've always sort of found the CIPR qualifications have been very useful for that. And as I said, did my first one a long time ago. So I wanted to do something as an independent practitioner that I thought would add value to me personally and equity to me practicing independently. So, and it's kind of this overarching thread for me. It sort of joins a lot of the other qualifications together and a lot of the other thinking, in that it tests your strategic skills, your judgment, your ethics. I think judgment's a good one, actually. some personal skills in there as well. And it was the right time for me. I needed this. It wasn't so much a badge, but I think it was more about me feeling confident and having that, like Steve says, you need something to back you up when you say you can do something, or something is the right, or you give your opinion. Is knowing that you've got something there that backs that up as well. And you know, I'm sure we'll get into the why and how you personally need that or not. But I think in a nutshell, that's why I got chartered. Yeah.
There's a lot in there about credibility, isn't there? Yeah. And there's an emerging theme about, you know, that we've got personal reasons, but also professional reasons for doing it as well. Vasanta, do you relate to Emma and Steve's comments? Have you got a different
yeah, sort of. I think I also come from the same sort of background. Before I become chartered in PR, then I used to be like chartered marketer and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing for over 15 years. And then our role within the when the company grows, then I had an interest in the communication and the PR side of it. However, the company attitudes that time was like PR is all about getting publicity. But then I sort of had that responsibility, but I wasn't properly. But again, what I thought was, no, whatever I do, I take pride in what I'm doing. So I wanted to learn this properly and also understand what's this PR all about. That sort of things, actually, that's the main objective that I first of all, became a member of CIPR, then studied. Then after that, then I became an accredited member. So then that helped me to develop my understanding. And when I when I became the member of CIPR, I didn't have much understanding, but it helped me understand this is not all about the publicity. It's about leadership, ethics, and strategy, everything. Then how you manage your business or your service to the future in an ethical manner, and also give the right leadership. That's how I actually, then I thought to become, work toward the chartership. And also it's a bonus of that was basically the credibility, because now everybody knows that I'm chartered, then, and also then when I recommend something, then there's that added credibility. And also the other thing is, then we have a small team, in-house small team. Most of the time we'll deal with external parties. And that also gave me added confidence to deal with the external parties, because then I know the same thing as they know. So then it helps personally as well as for the organization. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I wonder, listening to you, I relate so much to what you've just said, and I wonder, listening to you, whether in the mix as well is, you know, in our profession, we can struggle because it's not a science, that there's definitely scientific aspects to it, you know, the data side of it, you know, the need, you know, for rigorous analysis and evaluation, but it can feel, or at least we're aware of the criticism, or, you know, that can be leveled at us, that we're a bit fluffy, you know, that we're a bit vague and it's all a bit soft and anyone can do it. I mean, that's a very, hopefully, an increasingly old school view, but it's still there sometimes. And
yes,
I think particularly when we're trying to hold our own vis-a-vis our other senior colleagues in a business whose professions perhaps are chartered by default, and or are just, you know, just lend themselves to a more rigorous framework. So I think framework is the word that comes to mind. I think perhaps chartership, one of its advantages is it gives you that rigorous, independent, objective framework that, you know, if you can hang your hat on it, it's like it's a concrete, independent assessment of your standing as a senior communications and PR professional. Sharon, I know you are so passionate about this. You've actually baked this into your recruitment processes. So, you know, fantastic. You know, if any more employers could follow your suit. What were your reasons for getting into this in the first place?
It was fantastic coming last, because listening to all of your points, really, they resonate so strongly. The one that I really resonated with Steve's, "Are you sure?" Simply because in my world, I work with engineers, engineers are either chartered, or they're working towards chartership, or they're working towards some professional qualification. And when I first joined the public sector 17 years ago, it was the done thing to use consultants to do your communications. Now, those consultants weren't qualified in communications in any way, shape or form. In fact, they were probably engineers themselves, but obviously getting paid to do communications is a nice little cash cow. But it was really difficult for me because although I knew my profession, there was nothing else, there was nothing I could say or show or demonstrate to say I was at that same level or was able to give that valuable advice. So like Emma, I took the CIPR diploma and I graduated from that, I think it was 2014, back end of 2014. In actual fact, I studied with the PR Academy, and I was thinking about becoming chartered, and actually my tutor at the PR Academy at the time was the one to encourage me at my diploma graduation. And that stuck with me. And I thought, well, okay, if I've got a lot of chartered engineers, what do I need to do to make them sit up and listen? So I went through the chartership process, and lo and behold, I had some interesting conversations with the chartered engineers who then found that our chartership process is pretty much the same as theirs. And it really did, because I learned along the way. The diploma taught me an enormous amount about why I was doing. I knew what I was doing, I knew how I was doing it, but the diploma really taught me how. And then the chartership endorsed that further, and that ethical communication, that judgment, I think somebody mentioned judgment before,
yeah.
the right judgment was really became sort of front and center. And before I knew it, I'd got engineers that were listening, and we were translating that into efficiencies. And you're talking about some on a reasonable size engineering project, around £500,000 plus in efficiencies, because we weren't using consultants to do communications, which makes a very powerful business case at a senior level to then say, look, you've invested once. And I've been very lucky. I've made business cases to senior management to invest in training. But you've invested once, why not take that a little bit further? Why not start scoping that out into the team and make that an essential criteria for anyone coming in? And I've even taken it so far as my own succession planning. So I've got 2 in my team now that I'm pushing through the diploma and chartership route, so that I got succession planning for me, because my role now requires chartership formally. So it has made the most phenomenal difference to my organisation, how we do communications, but equally to how I look at things and make judgments and decisions and work with our coastal communities. So I think it's been hugely valuable.
And what I love about what you're doing, Sharon, as well, is that in making into recruitment processes, that's of immediate benefit to your company and to yourself, because you know you're bringing in some really kind of high caliber, motivated individuals, but you're also doing your bit for the industry. And I think that, you know, I was very clear about this in my messaging about this event. It's not just for people who are yet to become chartered. I also want to inspire people who already are, you know, people like us, to inspire others and to really encourage and mentor others to do this. And where we're responsible for recruitment, to follow your very good example, because, you know, really, unless chartership becomes almost like a de facto requisite for our industry, that's my thing that I'm really passionate about. You know, we're going to struggle to prove the value that we actually deliver. And there is a powerful piece in there as well about metrics. But of course, the whole business of chartership, you know, you don't become chartered if you're not able to deliver that harder side of the comms piece as well. So I think, yeah, surprise. You're gone, Steve. Yeah.
Sorry, just going to say to your point at the beginning, kind of why aren't more people chartered? I think there is an element of it being a relatively new qualification. So I think sometimes we're a bit hard on ourselves. Actually, it hasn't been around, certainly not in the new form, the new assessment form, for very long. But the way I would frame that is, at the moment, it's a differentiator. So brilliant opportunity for the people on this call. Be one of a few people in the country that have a charter qualification, who can have brilliant jobs and brilliant employers like Sharon kind of picking them up. But over time, you're absolutely right. That should be the de facto for the industry, and it needs charter practitioners to really go out and be advocates for that, to be proud of that. Put it on your LinkedIn profile and really get other charter professions talking about it. I mean, what Sharon said, and obviously I heard it for the first time when we did a rehearsal for this, has really resonated with me. I hadn't really thought about chartered engineers and other chartered professions and how much that actually means to them, which I think is, it's a really, really good learning, really good way to think about it.
But what I would add to your point, Steve, as well, is that once you get chartered, is to be aware that you yourself are probably going to need to explain the value to people and spell that out. And I took this tip from a colleague on the committee. I think Michelle would mind me calling her out. And she said to me, she was job hunting the last year, and she said to me, I actually spell it out. She said, I have chartered and I have a little kind of postscript in my profile, and I followed suit now, and I explain, I take it verbatim from the CIPR website. This is what this means. This means that I have been independently assessed to this very high professional standard on those three key tenets: the ethics, strategy, and leadership. So frustrating as that might be, and I'm well aware we're kind of already nudging against one of the other things that we obviously need to talk about, this whole thing about whether it's perceived, the value's perceived, and whether, trying to deal with that problem. Well, we're part of that solution. We need to communicate that. And the other point I'd like to make, coming back to Asanta, something you said about being a chartered marketeer. So we should take confidence from that. Like our colleagues in the Chartered Institute of Marketing, they're just a hairbreadth away from us. And a lot of us started in marketing. I did too.
Yes,
and again, Michelle did too. It's not an uncommon route that you start in marketing. I also started with all my professional training, postgraduate, was with SIM to begin with. And I was chartered with them first. So they have that advantage of just having, they've got slightly longer standing and a bit more established, and their things a bit more mature. But we can take confidence from that, and inspiration and collaboration with them to help that is all well and good. Because the more you can understand that wider piece about how comms fit strategically into the wider business and marketing strategy, the more you're going to be able to deliver value.
And also I noticed that lots of 5 years ago, if you ask lots of chartered marketers, they only had the chartered marketer qualification, but I have seen a trend. Lots of chartered marketers or the members and fellows of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, now they are pursuing the CIPR membership, as well as they are trying to get the chartered PR qualifications. Exactly. And because I think they value that marketing and communications, or the PR goes hand in hand.
Hand in hand. Yeah, and wouldn't it be great if we could, encourage that trend both ways, from SIM to CIPR and back again? I mean, what's not to like?
I have seen quite big trend in that sense recently.
Yeah, I agree.
Just going back to what you were saying about the perceived value, actually, I've remembered that, because I work predominantly with companies in the built environment and did quite a long stint with the UK government in the housing and land remit. So working with a lot of everyone is either a chartered surveyor or chartered town planner. And when I got chartered, I remember someone said, "Oh, a town planner?" No. Why would I? No, I'm not a town planner. And I had to explain to them, and they sort of, it's kind of, and you're right, actually. I think we need to explain it more to people, because otherwise it's just a badge as well. And if you can't explain the value in something, we're not going to get more people doing it, because and I know we're going to get into the depth of that, but actually it does make a difference. But yes, we do have to still explain to people, with it being a fairly new qualification. The industry itself is, I know we keep saying this, but it's not that old as an industry even.
No.
So we're all on our thinking's up here, and lots of professional practitioners, but actually the teams we work with, their thinking is, way below ours, apart from ours, in terms of generally the communication at the value of communication generally, let alone chartership. So
I had a solicitor from work, I mean, just to pick up on your comment, Emma, you know, he messaged me on LinkedIn when I got qualified to say, oh, I didn't realize that PR people could be chartered.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm still not sure whether that was a sideswipe or not. I mean, she's very nice, so probably not. But I think you know, you've got examples just here of how it's a differentiator. It's a sort of line in the sand. And I hear a lot from PR practitioners who say, you know, I'm not taken seriously enough at work. I'm not valued enough. You know, what a way to make people sort of rethink the way about you, because that word chartered is super powerful. And this is the only organization in the world that can give you that honorific, that accreditation.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And you know, I think, and I know we've got Reem from PR Academy here as well. You know, that's my vision for CIPR, is that's not just a passport to jobs in this country, or you know, in the United Kingdom, but actually around the world. It's a passport, you know, inside and outside of the UK. And you know, we've certainly talked at CIPR board before about how we can make an equivalent qualification. So there's a US one that's got equivalency. So that's, I know we were talking about CIM before. The other route is to say, you know, if you want to go into work in the US or other countries, this is a great baseline to tell people where you're at.
Yeah.
I think your point
absolutely.
about explaining is really critical, because unlike an engineer that may wish to go for chartership, they don't have to make the case for change. So to allow me to follow the CIPR qualification route and to demonstrate value for investment, I had to make a really strong case for change in my organisation, which I know that engineer colleagues wouldn't have needed to have made. So it is about us using, if you like, taking all of the skills that we've got as PR professionals,
Exactly,
to set out that case for change to senior management, to say, if you invest in this development and this training, this is the result you're going to get, and to enable that to be evaluated and measured. And that did work, and it has worked, and it was worked really well for us, of course, because we've now got that investment. But I've been helping others make that case for change within the county council, within one of our other risk management authorities, and in fact, even internally in other teams, I've now got people who I'm mentoring through the CIPR qualification, who've recognised that actually that's a really good route for them, and it resonates with the job they're doing. So it is that very strong case for change that's important for us, I think.
And we shouldn't be perhaps that surprised, because I think you've alluded to this, Sharon. Change is often at the heart of what we do. Communication often necessitates change, and we're often bringing people on a journey. And in a way, it's just applying that in this particular regard. The word that comes to my mind as we talk and mull over this is pioneer. You know, it's like, in so many ways, the profession is pioneering. I mean, specifically comms. I mean, if I think about it, I mean, I was always Comms in-house, and I always describe myself as Comms. And at some point, there was definitely that split. And we all know why, because the area of communications has just got more and more diverse, with more and more different things that you can kind of get really, really specialized in. And, you know, it's too big a role now. I mean, when I started, you barely had email, let alone social, for example. I'm sure some of us can relate to that on this call.
Really good point, actually. I'd not thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
You know, and of course, it was all moving in this direction, but I think the events the last couple of years with this pandemic has just accelerated the perception of comms as really central. Like, we've heard again and again how suddenly comms folk who before were barely visible to anyone in C-suite, suddenly were being not just asked, but like dragged into the boardroom and like, guys, you know, we need your help, you know, and then suddenly kind of going, oh wow, these people, they kind of know what they're doing. Oh, they've just saved our bacon with this reputational issue, or how we're going to manage our internal comms, or whatever it might be. So
I was chatting to my wife the other day. I chat to my wife every day.
That's good.
Which
just as well.
Yeah. But my wife's a solicitor, and she was telling me that they have a saying in their industry, which is, apparently originally it was this: you trust your doctor with your health, and the lawyers say, but you trust your lawyer with your life, which is, you know, overclaimed, my view, but whatever. And I was saying, oh, that's interesting, because I guess with PR, it's like you trust your PR practitioner with your reputation.
With your reputation, yeah.
And to your point,
Yeah.
you know, Ruth, a few years ago, maybe that wasn't such a big thing. But now, actually, you think about trusting someone with your reputation. That's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
People
And we know
definitely
that
understand it more. That people understand it more because of the last 2 years in particular. I think you're absolutely right. People would understand that saying more now.
And we know there's a massive need, because we know that the trust barometer, people just don't have faith and trust in institutions anymore. And there's we all have that responsibility to communicate transparently, make sure that our companies aren't just washing on, important issues and so on. So yeah, there's a lot there.
We're all sorry, Ruth, we're all facing a changing climate. And we recently had Sir David Attenborough take to the stage at COP26 to say that communications is the principal importance in solving climate change. This is a door opener for any communications professional. We've not had this before. That is on a global scale of somebody of that importance. So, this is an opportunity to really capitalize on that. And perhaps to have those conversations to say, look, this training is really in your benefit. It's going to deliver you results. Invest in that, invest in people as you will do your solicitors, your engineers, your chartered surveyors. Now's our time to perhaps do that.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. The global problem needs global collaborations. In order to get the global collaboration, you need to communicate the message in the global level. So that's where we can add really good value in there.
So it's not really surprising that we're all like passionate and we're all like, kind of at the top level, kind of convoluting way. But I want to get back to some of the sort of real concrete specifics around our individual careers, because I'm sure people in the call, they could say, yeah, whatever, you've got it. It all sounds great, but how's it really going to help me? So let's get into some of that. How would we all say actually being chartered has helped us with our career to date, or has it? I mean, maybe the value's been there, but not specifically in terms of career advancement. Vasanta, you go first.
Yeah, personally, I didn't get like a direct results becoming a chartered. As I said, like it's a personal choice. Then it's a passion that I want to do whatever I do in the right way. So that's a good chartered. However, I benefited from various indirect results. Take for example, previously I used to be the marketing director. Then the company created this role for me as marketing and communication director. And because before company understood the requirement of the proper communication function, I understood and I demonstrate the such requirement to the organization. Then that actually benefited me, and it had a good progress in my career. And also one of the things that whatever I do, then I can do it more confidently, and I know that it has improved my quality of work. That's how I see that it helped me.
Okay, Emma, what about you? Because obviously you did it as you were, it was partly to help launch your career as an independent.
Yeah.
Do you think it's helped you, when you're pitching for new work? Do you think your clients take you more seriously because you're chartered?
Yeah, I think they do. I think it makes a big difference. In particular, for two reasons. So recently, I got referred for a piece of work. And usually it takes a while, of getting to know an organisation, and then you might do a small piece of work and that might turn into a bigger piece of work. And I have a pattern of that sort of work because I work a lot of strategy projects. And I got referred for this piece of work, and it was a very quick conversation. The rapport was there, you have to have the rapport. But the other thing is this sort of, we went from meeting to working, and that hadn't happened to me yet in the few years I've been doing this. And I think for them, the chartership was a seal of approval, almost that they had some recourse, if you like. I think that came across when I talk about my work, and I talk about my moral compass, and I talk about my ethical standing and how I feel about that personally, but also from a work point of view. So I think it fundamentally, yes, it does help. The other example, I suppose, would be I work on big complex engineering projects. you know, huge construction projects with hundreds of people, and you have to be able to very, very quickly make your point and be heard. Coming back to what Steve was saying earlier, you know, are you sure? Well, you've got to be, you know, you probably at one moment in those big projects to get your say, and you know, you need to be able to get everyone's attention. And I think it does help. I think it does help that I'm chartered. I think being part of those discussions and people listening to your opinion, I would say absolutely it has helped. Not to say that people wouldn't listen to someone who wasn't chartered, obviously, it's just my personal opinion, but I'm sure there are lots of cases where that's the case, but I think it has helped me in the areas that I work in particular, and the situations I find myself in.
I really like that idea of the CIPR brand behind Chartership almost offering, it's almost a sense of professional indemnity.
Yeah, totally.
I just wonder, Steve, whether that's something to explore. You know, there's obviously a whole spectrum there that you could explore, but that would, I can imagine, especially for independents starting out, that giving, you know, people real confidence. It's almost like this is a hallmark, it's a guarantee, and if your work's found short, you know, which okay, that sounds quite scary language, but yeah, there's a kind of recourse. There's some kind of like.
I think that absolutely applies. It applies in two ways. It's literally CIPR will give you low cost indemnity insurance. I think.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
If you are a small business, but also you are subject to a disciplinary process.
That's right.
That others in the industry can't do. So if Emma gives the wrong advice, I'm sure she never does, but and you know, really overstretches on her claims, or that's a better example. Let's non-personalize them here, but the consultants that Sharon used to use, you know, if one of those makes a massive overclaim and they haven't been a CIPR member, you're able to go in and complain about them, and people sometimes say, look, you know, there's loads of free riders here who can not be a member of the CIPR if they're a dodgy practitioner. Well, that's fine, but you know, buyer beware. We have PR buying guides on the CIPR website that explain exactly that. You know, if you want to have that guarantee, if you want that indemnity, you should go to a CIPR accredited practitioner, or you know, other PR associations exist, but just quite aren't as good, frankly. And I think look, I mean, I said before, for me, the qualification gave me much more intrinsic value than extrinsic. People don't ask me every day at work if I'm chartered, but I have a huge amount more confidence now in my own ability, and to go to those really top roles, to add value in those key meetings. You know, what Emma said, I think really resonates. But I also wanted to be realistic with the people on this call. It's, you know, we're not there yet with the charter practitioner community. It's a small community at the moment. It's a great community. There's some really high quality people in there, including the people on this call. But we don't do enough as CIPR to really give value to chartered. So, you know, my vision is that charter practitioner really ought to be a stepping stone to something more. And, you know, I'm not going to give anything away on this call, but it's something that I want to work on for the 2023 year. To make sure that you get more direct value or opportunities at least that's out of chartered. But I've got to kind of work that through with CIPR management and the board. But I think at the very least, and I do know this is coming to 2022, this isn't my initiative, but I think you're going to see more of a community around chartered, and to be able to at least kind of gain from the other chartered practitioners and the depth of experience and quality there is in that community, and for me that's actually also a big advantage of CIPR. These days, you know, I get asked a question and I have to be an expert on it within about 2 hours to go and meet the CEO of one of our executive committee, and I've got lots of people in CIPR I can kind of call on and say, you know, do you know a little bit more about this than me? Can you make me at least sound half competent by the time I go to this meeting? And I do that an awful lot, and that's incredibly valuable. And I really wouldn't underestimate that the value of that as well in terms of becoming chartered, being part of that community.
100% second that, Steve. The networking is fabulous, and my experience today has been one of support. People are very supportive, very happy to help, and it's very accessible, very accessible. So, you know, coming back to that challenge that we all have, where, I mean, perhaps not so much in more senior roles that perhaps some of us on this call have, where you're more kind of overseeing and it's more the strategy. You're not perhaps doing so much of the sort of nitty-gritty day-to-day stuff, but still, you know, to your point, you're expected to kind of know so much about so many different areas, and there's always all the new stuff coming through, and you've always got to be able to field that classic C-suite comment of, oh, I saw this cool thing on TikTok or whatever it might be, and you're like, oh man,
Yeah.
like
Facepalm.
back to basics. Yeah.
I know nothing about
so,
TikTok.
Yeah, I sat on a call about TikTok yesterday with some dude from there. It was kind of a bit terrifying, but anyway.
I would like to add that it can have direct benefits. So I was chartered in September 2016 and was promoted in October. So, and the Chartership played a huge role in that, because of course, having that strategic lead across the 3 local authorities, you've got to know your stuff at that level. But that aside, because like Steve, I'm not asked every day whether I am, what it has done for me is it's opened national doors. So at a local level, we might want to change national policy, or we might want to influence national policy. When we're talking about, so if we take the DEFRA's F7 2050 strategy, for example, when we were looking at their evaluation measures and how they intend to achieve resilience in a community, when we were talking about stakeholder work, I was able to sit on that national stage and talk with some authority and have some influence over that national strategy and national policy. So I think it does have that credibility where you want to, it does open doors. So where you want to open doors, where you want to be taken seriously, it is a worthwhile thing to do. And that's where I found its real value, if I'm honest.
I learned loads from doing it, just in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we've not really talked about that, have we? But yeah, I mean, the day itself was a whole day of learning, and the pre-work. The assessment process is so much easier than it was. I wouldn't have applied with the previous process. I think it changed around the time that we became chartered, Ruth. I think it had changed within the last couple of years of doing that.
Yeah, it had.
It was terrifying.
Were you the previous applicant? Were you?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it, actually. I have to say, I don't mind saying that on this call. But it's so much more accessible now, and I think the way you can approach it is, and it's a way of just, it's a lovely thing to do, because you go through everything you've learned, all the examples you've got, how you did things, your perspective on things, and and then you spend a day just talking about all these topics, and you get really nerdy about PR for the day, and it's great. It's a really great, actually, as a process, it's a really great process. Is the thing that I would say. It's interesting to do it as well.
Very stimulating. Yeah,
it is. It really, and you meet some fabulous people, as you said. I did mine with a really broad group of people, actually. My group was quite we were all quite different backgrounds and things, but yeah, it's a really great process.
Cool.
One piece of advice I give people on this call thinking of becoming chartered is that it is about going out there and projecting your career and your experience, but people who just do that don't always qualify. And there's a real value in sort of going out there and listening as well. And as everyone on this call is saying, it's the stuff you learn from your peers is just as valuable, and the way that they address things, and that's very much that sort of link into the community that I talked about before, and that sort of understanding of like the different directions people come at, because as Ruth made the point earlier, we are a very broad church, and that really is a huge amount of value to you in terms of improving your own practice. Thinking about and learning from other people's approaches to answering the same sort of set of questions is fascinating.
It is quite a challenge, isn't it, on the day, because obviously you're anxious to shine and get your points across, but it's something that I always stress as well, that you need to demonstrate really good critical listening,
Yes.
and be able to respond to other people's comments in a very inclusive way that also demonstrates your own experience. And so also, you know, you can do all the prep you like in the world, but it's absolutely not about parrot learning your bullets, because you know, at the end of the day, that will feel quite flimsy on the day and fall over.
Well, it does, doesn't it? I mean, there were two in my group that didn't get through, you know, and I think looking back, I can see that was possibly one of the reasons why. You could see the difference in responding and stuff like that, potentially.
So I'm conscious of time, and I can see there's been a few questions, and I think we'll sort of move towards a wrap, and then we'll try and pick up some people's questions. And we've started to move towards the more practical side of it, and I deliberately wanted this conversation mostly to be more about the value of it and getting into people's motivations and some of the reasons why people don't, but we can touch on some of the practical stuff as well. Sort of crossing the two, really, I want to deal with some of the barriers. So we put a little poll out on social media, on Twitter and LinkedIn, ahead of this event, asking people what, you know, to basically say what their biggest reason was for not doing this. Now, not surprisingly, cost and time feature. You know, inevitably, those hygiene factors are always going to feature. It is, you know, if you're paying for yourself, it's 400 or quid. If it's time, you know, I get it. It's a day of your time and a bit of prep beforehand. But the main reason that really came up was what I'm going to call loosely imposter syndrome. People feeling like, oh, well, that's not for me, or I'm not ready, and so on and so forth. So I guess my question is, how can we encourage people to overcome the barriers, to overcome the reasons why, you know, even if they're kind of interested, kind of get it, they think actually in the end it's any one of a combination of the above. You know, it's either too costly, too time consuming, and or they just feel like it's a bit beyond them. Sharon, do you want to go first? Because I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations with your team as you make this a part of your processes.
I have, and the imposter syndrome is really quite interesting, isn't it? Because I think we all suffer from that in some aspects. I certainly, I don't want to make this as a female thing, but certainly working in an area with predominantly male engineers, it is something that you can, you know, am I saying the right thing? Is this the right guidance, sort of thing? I think possibly, well, they say that fear and excitement are the same emotion, just managed in a different way. I found the process quite exciting. And I think looking at it as that further development, that further tool in your armory, as opposed to something that's difficult to do and it's going to take a lot of time, is what you're going to get as a result of your investment in that time. It is a very short amount of time to prepare for. It's a very short day, but actually it's a lifetime worth of benefit. And I think that's possibly how, well, let's face it, it's how we approach anything, from learning to play golf to cycling to anything. If it's a new skill, it might be a little bit hard to start with, but actually you get a lifetime's worth of benefit out of it. And I guess that's how I approached it, and how I get my staff to approach it. Is it's something you're going to learn, enjoy it, enjoy that process, enjoy the learning, enjoy the day. As Emma said, and I think others have said, it's a fantastic day to go through because you make the most wonderful contacts and have the most great conversations, but actually you're going to benefit from that for the rest of your career. So I guess that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wasanta?
Yeah, what happened with my experience, actually, I failed the first Chartership assessment. And what happened was, then I have been studying, and also I have been a member for a couple of years. Then what I was lacking was, then I was within my organization, I didn't have that much support. So the thing is, then, and also I didn't have a proper mentor either, because I was doing self-studying. But then after the first one, what I did was I buddied up with a few fellow chartered members. Then I over the next year, I took another year. during that year, I exchanged my ideas. Then we used to have chat time to time. That really helped me, because it's all about like you can study, and also you can implement, and also you can practice. However, having a proper mentor or a buddy really helped me. I would say like
100%.
maybe like, I don't know, you can get in touch with the local
Completely.
branch, and maybe having that sort of like influence is really, and it make you more interested achieving that. That really helped me, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, Vasanta. A couple of really good points there. So first of
there
all,
are lots of people are willing to help, willing to mentor, willing to guide. And I would say like that's the biggest advantage I had, and I'm happy to offer, and I'm sure there are lots of people out there willing to offer.
Yeah, 100%. So I didn't know anyone myself, but I went via East Anglia Committee and was given a couple of people to chat to, and that really helped me as well. And I think it's also really reassuring for people to know, just on a practical point, that when you, I believe this is still the case, correct me Steve if it's changed, but at least when I did it, once you paid, you were, if you weren't successful on the day, you had another go in the bag. So there's no shame in that at all. Good for you for going for it, and you'll learn loads through the process. And what's the worst that happens? Like with Santa, first time you don't get it, second time you will, because you'll get such good feedback. But also, and I think this is a point that you make, Steve, as well, is it's really helpful. I think that the process of talking to someone who's done it helps you to evaluate where you are. So, obviously you've got to be realistic. Maybe you aren't quite ready. That's okay. That's fine. It's a journey. And if you talk to people, you'll work out exactly where you are, and you can say, okay, plan. I know I need X, Y, and Z, and you can go off and get that stuff, and you can make a plan, time it, and then you'll find yourself, within a year or 2 years tops, you'll be ready and going for it, and wonder why you ever wondered about it. So I would really encourage people on that. Steve, have you got anything to add on this practical side of things?
No, I pretty much repeat what you just said. That I think there's a huge value in kind of reaching out to people who've done it before. As Vasanta says, there's plenty of people out there. You can find them on LinkedIn by just searching for chart.pr. There'll be people through your East Anglia Committee. But what Ruth said is absolutely correct. This is the gold standard for CIPR. This is the sort of top level of our membership. And what you're getting out of that is a skills gap analysis. So if you're not ready for it now, you'll have a very clear path for your CPD ready to then get to it in future. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. There's absolutely no rush to become chartered. It's about you being there at the time when you're ready to do that. And I'm sure every other charter profession would say exactly the same. Yeah,
100%.
The only thing I would add to that, so I know you want to move on very quickly, is imposter syndrome is real. We all get it. It's a genuine thing, but it is a mindset. It's not a real tangible thing. It's a mindset. So if you can fix the mindset, you'll be able to move on. It's not necessarily going to stop you doing your chartership. Just speak to people, get reassurance, get the support you need to do it, and feel better about it. And it's a great process to do. To get past that as well.
Yeah, that's good advice, Emma. Really conscious of time. I feel like we could definitely carry on chatting. I've seen that there have been a few comments and questions in chat, but I can also see that Steve, thank you, you've replied, and I think Hayley, you have as well. Before we close, would anyone actually like to unmute themselves and ask any question direct of any of the panelists? Anyone?
Yeah, can I just ask my question, please, Ruth?
Hi, Nick. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Hi. I put it in the chat, but I was quite interested. Several of you have spoken about the diploma, CIPR diploma, but some of you have come through qualified by experience, which is where I am. Do you think the CIPR diploma would gives you a better base and a knowledge base and a sort of theoretical underpinning for the chartership, or is that a nice to have rather than you must have it before going for the?
I can start on this if that's okay, Ruth.
Please, yeah.
So look, Nick, I found it directly useful in the strategy section because I understood the theoretical base behind some of the questions, and I've mentored a couple of people who've done Chartership since. And if you start to think about kind of how you do your strategies, what happens if you move one part of the sort of standard strategy set to another part? Where do you want to sit in an organization? What are you doing PR for? All of that stuff is really helpful with a diploma. However, do you absolutely need a diploma in order to become chartered? As I'm sure other people here will say, no, you don't. So I've done the diploma. I found it super useful. And I think it's a really great qualification. But I think there's also other routes there.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Steve, and thanks, Nick, for that question. Let me just close. I'm just going to share my screen again, just briefly, just to flag 3 things with you before we close. So first of all, if you would like to find out more about Chartership, everything you need is on the CIPR website. And I checked the dates. You're still in time to register for the next assessment day coming up on Friday, the 10th of December. So carpe diem. The deadline for that is tomorrow. Otherwise, if that's a little bit too brutal, you can complete an expression of interest form to receive info on future dates. And I've also given you there, I'll share these slides after the event. I wrote an article. I'm not the only one. Lots of people have. There's lots of information out there. And my article also links to a webinar I did with Michelle Nelson from the committee a couple of years ago that was purely on the practical side of it, how to prepare for the day and all of that. We've touched on a few things there, but that wasn't really the focus of this call today. Secondly, a bit of fun. We've got our Christmas Connect coming up on Wednesday, the 15th of December, 6:30 to 8. You don't have to come for the whole thing. Feel free to drop in and drop out. It's free, open to all. Please join us for some relaxed socializing. And thanks to Nick, we have a festive quiz. Woohoo! And we've even decided to give everyone, well, not everyone, sorry, get carried away, the winner a £10 book.
Applies,
so
yeah.
there you go.
No, you said it now. That's it. You're gonna hold you to it.
Yeah, and Nick's on the call. She holds the purse string. She's like, no, not everyone. And last but not least, we've recently joined Guild. So if you aren't on there, please do join us. Look for the CIPR East Anglia group and join in with the conversation there. So last but not least, at 13:31, 1 minute over time, a big thank you to everyone, our fabulous panelists, Sharon, Wasanta, Emma and Steve. Thank you all very, very much for your time today and for your insights. It's been really inspiring to share this call with you. To all of you who came, for giving up your lunchtime to join us, those of you who might be listening afterwards via the recording, and of course to my wonderful team from the CIPR East Anglia Committee, for all your help in supporting and running the webinar. And that's it. Hope you all have a great rest of the day and look forward to seeing some of you getting chartered. Feel free to get in touch with me, certainly, and I'm sure the others would be the same. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take
Good luck,
care.
everyone.